Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's silly Camille. It's fun Camille. It's Mardi Gras season Camille. So if you've never been here, welcome. If you have been here before, thank you for coming back and joining me in my foolishness and shenanigans and hopefully maybe learning some cool stuff. If you know anybody who you think might like what I do here, send them here. If they're cool. If they're cool, please send them. If not, we're good. So I adjust my crown. It's carnival season. It's the Friday before Mardi Gras. And I was not going to participate in Mardi Gras this year, but damn it, here we are. And I am, in spite of myself. Friends who came into town last weekend, my beautiful friend, Stacey Williams-Ung, and her awesome husband, Ken. Ken fucking rocks. They came in in spite of myself, we went out and had some Mardi Gras fun. And now my dear friends are in from Seattle. Stacy, Allie, and Jackie are in. And I am going to go hang out and meet with them. And we're going to do some Mardi Gras shenanigans. So that is why we have the headpiece on. This is my headpiece I made a couple of years ago. And I think I've only worn it like 3 times, maybe twice. So, hello, hi. It's carnival season, which I just did a video on. So if you want a little bit of a breakdown of what is Mardi Gras as opposed to Carnival, why do we use the terms interchangeably, what the hell does it even mean, what's it about, yada yada. There's going to be a video that's going to be posted that's going to talk a little bit about that. And that's why the music, we've got some Dixieland jazz, some very New Orleans style jazz going on in the background. We've got Tiny Mike back. It's Tiny Mike. So please let me know about the audio, you guys. So I'm talking, I'm projecting my voice even louder, and it's so weird because the music is in the background. And it's different than what I would normally have it when I have music in the background with my AirPods, which, whatever, Apple, that's still a story, but whatever. Tonight, though, in this particular video, we are going to talk about the fact that it is Black History Month. And I am remiss because it is February 28th and I have not posted or said anything about Black History Month. And that's nuts. So it is still the 28th when this video is being made. And I wish I'd made it sooner in the month, but here we are. And so I want to talk about a very, very special New Orleanian who's a part of Black history. And we have to remember, Black history is still American history. It's a part of American history. And if you love New Orleans, if you've ever been here, there's a special place that is a quintessential stop. Like, people are like, oh my God, you got to go here, you got to go there, you got to go, you got to go to Pateau's, got to go to the cathedral, got to catch the St. Charles streetcar. Yes, you do. And you have to go to a place called Cafe du Monde. So Cafe du Monde is right there in dead square in the middle of the French Quarter, just off the banks of the river, across the street from St. Louis Cathedral, which is in Jackson Square. They have the most delicious beignets. They are these little fried pockets of fried dough, just covered with an avalanche of powdered sugar. And they're served with a steaming hot cup of our delicious chicory coffee, which, trust me, I don't travel anywhere without my chicory coffee. And it's just such a quintessential part of the experience of coming here as a tourist. And honestly, as a local, every once in a while, we're like, oh my God, I have not had beignets in forever. Let's go get some coffee and beignets. But do you know where that tradition started? Do you know where Cafe Du Monde started? Well, it is because of a New Orleanian who was a Black woman, a free woman of color. So we're not going to turn this into a major TED talk because, as a tour guide, and if you are here often, Lord knows I can talk. But to give you the 411, let's go back. We had something called Code Noir here. Anywhere where the French went, they had something called Code Noir. It literally translates to black code. And with Code Noir, by the time the French came here and founded, which we know founded means colonized, the city of New Orleans, which was then known as the territory of Orleans. Now, of course, there had been multiple native tribes that were here: the Homas, the Choctaw, there were some Cherokee. Um, there were quite a few native people that had been here since at least the 1600s, probably longer than that, but that we know of, at least the 1600s into the late 1500s. When the French came here and set up shop, now we are declared a Catholic city. Everything in New Orleans somehow comes back to Catholicism. So if you've ever been here, that big, beautiful cathedral that I mentioned, Jackson Square, has St. Louis Cathedral. And if you watch the Super Bowl, it was definitely featured during the flyovers between, commercial breaks. That is the third installment of Jackson Square. Some things happened to the other two. So now we're on the third St. Louis Cathedral. By law, you had to be a practicing Catholic according to Code Noir. So people had to go to Mass. Everyone had to be a Catholic. Everyone was confirmed, Holy Communion, the whole 9 yards, whether you were a free person of color, whether you were enslaved, or whether you were a free white person. So we had this kind of weird caste system essentially here. Well, there was a woman by the name of Rose Nicaud. And there's discrepancy on the way that her name was pronounced. Many of us say Rose Nicaud. She was an enslaved woman. And part of the wacky ass thing about, God bless you, my goodness, it was very wacky. Cat sneezes. One of the many weird points of Code Noir, let's be clear, there was nothing cool about slavery any way you cut it. Like, the atrocities of enslaving human beings. So let us not pretend, let us not whitewash, let us not soften any of the harsh, grotesque realities of enslaving another human being. However, in addition to that, Code Noir made some aspects, if it's possible to say, in some respects, there were modifications. And one of the odd things with Code Noir was an enslaved person could purchase their own freedom. Vile, but here we are, history. So that's how you came up with this weird caste system of free people of color who were not enslaved. Different ways that you could have gotten there, but one way was you could purchase your own freedom. So there was a woman by the name of Rose Nicaud. And after Mass, when she would see people, speaking and just hanging out, and that sense of community that people wanted to have, and just chit chatting and catching up with each other after Mass. And again, you have to remember, everybody went to church, enslaved or not. So you had everybody gathering. And this incredibly brilliant entrepreneurial spirit named Rose Nicaud had said, hey, I had an idea. Coffee in New Orleans is everything. It was, it is, it always shall be. If you think I'm traveling anywhere without my coffee, my Creole chicory coffee, you'd be wrong. And so she decided to set up a coffee cart right across the street from the church. So you have the church, you've got this huge park area that is Jackson Square, buildings upon Talbot buildings alongside of it, and then the road, and then the levee. The river is just over there. She decided to set up right across the street from where Jackson Square, the park is, the church, to set up a coffee cart. And she would brew the most delicious, fresh, steaming hot chicory coffee. And even if it's 127 degrees here, which I mean, it almost is for about 10 months, we love our hot coffee. Iced coffee is something that's kind of become popular, obviously, more recently, but people love a good, strong cup of steaming coffee. And so Rose Nicaud decided, I'm going to set up a little coffee cart. And she had this little cart, and she would make the most beautiful steaming cup of coffee. And she would sell the coffee to the patrons, who were people who were coming out from the church. But also, you're right there by the river. So there were many guys who worked, dock workers and guys on the ships, who would come, and they would come and purchase her coffee. So she had all of these wonderful people that were coming for a steaming cup of coffee from her. And many women after that started having their own other coffee carts. And another interesting thing about Code Noir was, as far as the rights of people of color, in addition to women's rights. Odd, but there were still some rights. Were they always acknowledged? I mean, let's be honest. Patriarchy. But the law stated that if you were a woman and you had your own property, you kept your property. So if you went into a marriage with a property, by law, you were entitled to that property. And if your husband died, you kept that property of his, that some man or your uncle or, you know, your legal guardian, because a male had to be, no, a woman was able to keep that. So it's this weird thing that we had with some of the laws that gave not only women, regardless of white or not, certain rules that were, well, on the books legally to be adhered to, but it gave an opportunity for enslaved people to purchase their own freedom, but also women to be able to do that and to be able to have their own money. And Rose Nicaud eventually bought her own freedom, had her coffee cart, and that spot is where Cafe du Monde is located. So if you come to New Orleans and you go to the French Market, all kinds of shops and vendors, but it used to be where they would have produce and fishmongers and fresh vegetables. But you would have several different women that took a page from the book of Rose Nicaud for selling coffee. So this is not a paid endorsement. I mean, if they want to, yes, please, thank you, because God knows I buy enough of y'all's coffee. But this is one of the coffee brands that we have here, and this is one of my absolute favorites, French Market coffee. And it comes in different versions. This is the premium French roast. This is more of a dark roast kind of a blend here. It does have the chicory, but then there's medium dark roast. There's even decaf for those of you who may have decaf needs. But this is the beginning, the front of the French Market. And it's just down from here where Rose Nicaud would have actually set up her coffee cart. So let's bring it all to tarot to put a bow on this, y'all. And to celebrate Rose Nicaud, I do not have her in a. I don't have her in a tarot deck, but who knows? Maybe she'll appear in one. Let's take a sip of coffee as we think about that and contemplate it. Coffee makes me happy in my heart. Coffee makes me dance. And I'm one of those weirdos who can drink a cup of coffee and fall dead asleep before it's finished. So even though it is, what time is it? 7:15. Time for me to go. I'm having a cup of coffee with you. I mean, we can't talk about coffee in New Orleans and Rose Nicaud without talking about coffee. So though she's not in a tarot deck, I do want to show you what card in tarot that is representative of her or she of, and it is from, oh wow, it's on the box. The Amazing Rhythm and Soul Tarot from my dear friend Stacey Williamson. And the entrepreneurial spirit of a confident, powerful woman who nurtured her passions, nurtured her desire to have her own freedom and her own independence, and worked really, really hard to do so. So, in the Rhythm and Soul Tarot, and here it is. Here's the card, you guys. Here's the back of the deck. The ring light fight is always real. And it has the gorgeous gold edges on it. And in the deck, this is not Rose Nicaud, but this is the Queen of Wands. And in Stacey's deck, she renamed the different suits. So wands in her deck are jazz. And this is her, she's just such a freaking incredibly talented artist. The work that this woman, her skill, man, and how she's able to capture both fabrics and glass is just unbelievable. But let's talk about who this is. And the deck comes with a really, really phenomenal guidebook. Like, this is no LBW. But let's read a little bit, and let me, Dawn said, readers. Let's read a little bit about the Queen of Jazz, because who this is actually another famous New Orleanian's wife, Louis Armstrong, who is a New Orleanian. And if you've ever been here, the park at the back of the French Quarter, Armstrong Park, is named after Louis Armstrong. And that location is actually the home of the birthplace of jazz, which is New Orleans, but specifically that area where you can still go and see African drumming circles. Sorry, you guys. African drumming circles every Sunday, because another really odd ass thing about Code Noir was enslaved people could get, Sunday was God's day. Everybody got Sunday off. So they would meet back there, which would have been swamp area at that time, and they mixed with the indigenous people who helped them a lot to understand the land, to understand what plants could be used, and who gave them oftentimes safe refuge when enslaved people were escaping. And so we have this whole culture of the Mardi Gras Indians. And I'm going to stop because that is incredibly fascinating, and that's going to turn into another segment of a video. Maybe I'll do something on it, but look up the Mardi Gras Indians, because super incredibly fascinating part of our culture here in New Orleans. Specifically, yes, African American culture, but New Orleans culture, and their beadwork is unbelievable, and they are a huge part of Mardi Gras and Carnival season. But this is Lil Hardin, who was Louis Armstrong's wife. And when we just think about Rose Nicaud, trying to get, I hope you guys can see this. Again, the struggle with the ring light situation, we're doing what we can. Just a tiny bit. The muse for the Queen of Jazz is Lil Hardin Armstrong, who was once the wife of Louis Armstrong, the jazz superstar. Some say Lil Hardin was the genius behind Louis' success because it was she who had a formal musical education. In addition to arranging his music, she helped him refine his fashion choices and stage persona. Imagined here in a buttery soft yellow silk gown, the queen is seated dreamily at her piano keys, gazing into the sky as if lost in creative thought. Her beauty and grace are dazzling. We cannot wait for her to play. So, just when you think about Queen of Wands energy, it's about that energy of talent, enthusiasm, creativity, confidence, being powerful and strong and assertive, and what that must have taken for Lil Hardin Armstrong, but also for the person we're talking about, that she's just the card to represent, of Rose Nicaud. So the next time you come to New Orleans and you have coffee and beignets, think about Rose Nicaud. Maybe pour a little sip of coffee on the ground, pour one out for her to pay respect and acknowledgement to her spirit. And the reason why I chose this deck is not only because Lil Hardin Armstrong's connection here to New Orleans via her husband Louis, but as an African American woman that is featured in a tarot deck. And there are so many people of color that are featured in many of Stacey Williams Young's decks, but definitely in the Rhythm and Soul Tarot. As I'm looking down, another New Orleanian, a personal friend of hers, Jay, um, who is her magician. So, on that note, you've gotten some New Orleans history. You've gotten some Black history. I just made it under the radar of the 28th. And you have gotten some Mardi Gras history. So I am going to finish my coffee. I am going to take my headdress and my orange sliced earrings. And in honor of Oshun and in honor of carnival season, I am going to go and have some Mardi Gras fun. And I will catch you guys in the next video.